what you're talking about is so important because these individual children that I've seen grow up with their parents, and I've managed some of their parents' monies for years, and you see wealth and success and everything that these individuals did to get there, and their children are doing none of those things. And so in trying to give their children something better than what they grew up with, they missed the healthy struggle. Talk to our listeners a little bit about the value of struggle.
Yeah, and foundationally to what you're talking about, we think so many parents with the best of intentions, let's make it easier, let's make it better. They shouldn't have to go through what we went through. Well, I went through a lot of struggle and I turned out pretty good. Those that go through the most struggle, there's so many immigrant stories out there. They come over here and take over the world in the United States. I mean, it's so amazing what they're able to accomplish. So we take all the struggle away and it's like they never went to the life gym and they get launched. It's really important to have them go through those struggles. And at every age, a struggle can be different. A struggle could be just learning how to interact in the world when you go out to dinner or something along those lines, or getting your homework done and getting decent grades and like really learning so you can apply this stuff in a meaningful, value creating way. That can be a struggle. In the book, we have lots of examples and by different age groups of, these are things that the parents can be teaching the kids to kind of walk through these micro struggles to be able to do, any and all things in the household. So when they launch into adulthood, things are better for them as well. So struggle is important. Why do so many parents sort of freak out when they watch the kids struggle? They just can't handle it. So they immediately take it away.
Yeah.
It's painful, but if you see the value in struggle with the kids, then love is unconditional. I love you. You have to go through this. You need to have learn this capability, but I'm going to be okay letting you do that. So you can be a stronger teenager and eventually a much stronger adult.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because the very struggles are part of what build us to have that resilience when we actually need to make the decisions that are required of us in these challenges. The challenging moments are the very moments that I feel the most purpose out of. You're like, okay, I made it through this as a child. And I grew up with not a whole lot. And so, my parents provided me great foundation, great love in the house. Financially, there was no conversation, nothing at all when it came to a financial discussion. And it was always hiding it a little bit. So we've tried dramatically to change that in our home and have conversations extremely open, extremely different. And I add substance. I talk about our employees. I talk about the challenge of leadership. I talk about how, there are months where I get phantom income and I pay taxes on it. And we talk about what that means. And, the older my children get, I feel like I'm preparing them to understand those things, but also they have to find the struggle on their own. And as a parent, it's really hard to watch them struggle. That's what you're hitting on right there. It's very difficult for us to actually evaluate and watch and go, oh my gosh, can we not just solve this problem for them?
Yeah. And some of the struggles, they act like, a lot of folks like it's trauma where it shouldn't be. There's a lot of cases that I've seen where children are struggling in school, people are bullying me, and next thing you know, they have a therapist, sometimes two therapists, they're on different anxiety drugs. It's like, wait a minute, this is a healthy struggle to be able to learn to socialize and fit out in the world. And there's going to be people that you don't get along with, those that don't agree with you. There's going to be jerks out there, et cetera. That's a healthy struggle, and you talk through it. And rather than, oh, you poor thing, and I hear adults doing it to each other all the time, better question is, how did you leverage that, or how do you plan to leverage that to create more value in the world? So, whether it's a healthy struggle by design, which is what we're trying to get at in the book, or, it happens, an unhealthy struggle, all struggles can be leveraged to create more value. And if you just look at Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning in that book.
Favorite books, yeah.
Yeah, I read it at least once a year, and I get deeper understanding and meaning every single time. That was horrific trauma, struggle, terrible, and yet he's changed the lives and perspectives and mindset of tens of millions of people around the world. That's how he leveraged it. We all can do that regardless of what's going on, and we have it pretty easy on average here in the United States. And I didn't have the foundation when I grew up. I was kicked out of the house at the beginning of my senior year in high school. Younger brother in and out of prison 4 times before I chose to disown him for some of the things that he did. There were family members that were way worse than that. I mean, it was a toxic and dangerous environment a lot of the time. But what saved it for me, and I talk about this later in the book, I got my start pulling weeds for 25 cents an hour. A neighbor, unsolicited, not a friend, not a family member. Hey, would you do this for 25 cents an hour? Sure. And back then in the 60s, you could buy, 2 candy bars and have change. That was a big deal. And I remember it felt good. And then I'm shoveling snow and I'm mowing lawns and I have paper routes and, a dishwasher, busboy, and a cook. And by the time I was asked to leave the house, it was one night I slept in my truck, no big deal. Next night I had an apartment. It was a non-event financially because I was out in the real world trading my best efforts for the accumulated best efforts of others. And I could trust it. The more value that I created, the more they were willing to pay me for
Yep.
it. Again, it can't be friends or family because you don't know if it's real. They might just be being nice and helping you. It's got to be in the real world with real people. And I just kept taking bigger and bigger steps. And in the 1980s, I made most of my money playing music. I played over 1,000 nights in concerts, playing guitar, singing in different bands. And then after that, I'm on my 7th business. I've started from scratch now with exits from a few million to well into 9 figures. And I just kept taking bigger steps on this value creation cycle. You struggle to get a capability, it builds confidence, use that to actually create value. And then if you choose to, take bigger and bigger steps. But if I look at the 3 buckets, there's material. Okay, I've done well there and I expect to continue to do well. The emotional energy bucket, I believe, is what I excel at over all 3 of them, like by far. I mean, think about leadership, right? That's what we do. We create an energizing environment to release productive, intrinsically motivated energy with the team members. So I think about it holistically. It's not just money, and everybody goes there. Think about it holistically. The emotional piece and the spiritual piece, arguably way more important as a set than just the material piece.
Yeah, well, I mean, when stuff gets heavy, when it gets really heavy and you can't find a solution, and I know someone that's built businesses and sold them and developed new ones, that there have been problems that you can't solve. And there are challenges with humans where someone gets sick and you can't help their family, or there are just moments in your life where having something bigger than yourself really does pay off. And to lean on that energy, for me, has been a lifesaver, because those are the moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I usually can figure these things out, and now I can't.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.